everyone, my name is Lang Chen. In this video, we are going to teach you a little about turbocharger and supercharger. Both turbocharger and supercharger are compressors for forced induction of an internal combustion engine. Their main application is to increase the power output of an engine by allowing more fuels to burn. In this video, we will discuss the history of this charger, the differences between a turbocharger and supercharger, and we will talk in depth about their application. Stay tuned for this video, and we hope you pick up lots of knowledge on turbocharger and supercharger.
Hi, my name is Josh Terlizzi. I'm going to be talking about the history of the turbocharger and the supercharger. The turbocharger and the supercharger act very similarly. They both act as an air compressor, pressurizing the air that is traveling into the internal combustion engine. The process of pressurizing the air before it enters the engine makes it possible to have a higher air-fuel ratio and get way more power. When was this all developed? With the success of the turbocharger, we start seeing them pop up more in more popular racing events such as Formula 1, due to the fact that they could give more power to the engine with less weight. Cars all over the world were winning major racing events with turbochargers installed. It wasn't until 1978 when there was a large shift in the public's opinion towards turbochargers, with Mercedes-Benz releasing their 300 ST. This car was suited with low emissions and great efficiency, really what your typical car buyer today is looking for. And by the 1980s, most cars, especially in racing, were fit with turbochargers. So the Garrett Corporation was formed in 1936 by J.C. Garrett and was producing a charged air cooler for the B-17 barn. Garrett took notice of the need for turbochargers and decided to split the turbocharging division entirely from the gas turbine division and form a new group called Garrett Automotive. In 1962, the turbocharger did eventually make it to the cars that people were driving, but unfortunately they didn't do very well at launch. They were deemed unreliable in the couple cars they were used in, and they suffered tremendously. Nevertheless, emission standards became more critical, and in the early 1970s, turbocharging industry became crucial.
Hello everyone, my name is Charbel and I will be discussing turbochargers. To the left is a diagram showing us the exhaust manifold. A turbo system often requires a specially designed exhaust manifold to handle exhaust heat and pressure, and to properly deliver exhaust gas to the turbine unit. Now we will talk about the turbine section, the exhaust wheel, and the shaft. The engine's exhaust gas flows through the turbine section of the turbo. The energy from the exhaust, heat, and pressure causes the exhaust wheel to spin. The shaft that is attached to the exhaust wheel is also attached to the compressor. Now that the compressor wheel is rotating, eventually the vehicle will reach higher speeds, where the pressure from the exhaust gas is high enough which allows the compressor to be effective. When this happens, the spinning compressor wheel draws air into the compressor chamber and builds compression. This increases the mass flow rate of air into the engine for combustion. Lastly, we will talk about the air filter and the air intake pipe. The air filter ensures that only gas enters the engine for combustion and no dust particles enter. From there, the intake pipe sends the air to the compressor, which sends the compressed air into the combustion chamber. Finally, this cycle repeats. As the combustion finishes, the exhaust gases are then used towards the compressor.
To summarize how a turbocharger works, we will use this diagram starting from marker 1 being the exhaust manifold. To begin, once combustion occurs, the exhaust gases will leave the exhaust manifold to the turbine section due to difference in pressure. Once it enters the turbine section, it will rotate the exhaust wheel, which is connected to the compressor wheel, through a shaft. The compressor wheel will compress air that has been filtered through the intake pipe, and it will send the compressed air back into the combustion chamber. The cycle then repeats.
We will now discuss some of the advantages and disadvantages of turbochargers. One of the upsides of the turbocharger is that we use a small engine such as a 1.2 liter engine. With a turbo installed, it can generate around the same power as a 2 liter engine, yet using much less fuel compared to the 2 liter engine. This also means that high power and torque can be obtained at lower RPMs. But the main advantage is that the energy used to power the charger is the waste energy from the engine itself. The main disadvantage of a turbocharger is the lag. Turbo lag is unavoidable. It's the time it takes for the engine to produce enough exhaust at high speeds to achieve sufficient pressure in the combustion chamber. Most people know about the disadvantages of turbochargers, which are low speeds. One thing that we always forget is that all engines have a maximum allowable engine back pressure, which is specified by the engine manufacturer. Operating the engine at excessive back pressure might invalidate the engine warranty. So, observing the graph, we can see that after 2000 RPM, the back pressure plateaus, meaning the turbocharger's effect won't increase anymore as the RPMs increase. While superchargers are directly linked to the engine shaft output, this means that they're not affected by this.
Hey guys, I'm back. I'll be talking about the supercharger's role in vehicles' efficiency and power. And very similarly to the turbocharger, the development of the supercharger began very early in the internal combustion engine's lifetime. 1860, Philander and Francis Roots created a patent for an air mover for use in things like furnaces and industrial functions. The Roots style compressor was then formulated into what is now known to be called the Roots supercharger, one of the types of superchargers developed today. Another type of supercharger, the twin screw supercharger, was originally patented back in 1878 by Henrik Gerdar as a screw type compressor. It wasn't until 1921, though, that it was Gottlieb Daimler who placed the Roots supercharger into a 4-stroke engine. So this year was the year that Mercedes announced their supercharger passenger cars to be the first ever with superchargers installed in them.
Hi, my name is Ki, and I'm going to talk about the superchargers. A supercharger is designed to induce more air into the engine, and it is powered by the engine valve. There are three main types of superchargers: the Roots type, the twin screw type, and the centrifugal type. A Roots type supercharger contains a pair of three lobe rotors in this case. One of them rotates clockwise and the other one rotates counterclockwise. When the rotors rotate, the air will be pumped into the system and flow circumferentially in the space between each rotors and the inner surface of the case. Eventually, the air will be discharged to the engine. A Roots type supercharger draws more air into the engine by increasing the air, inducing speed rather than compressing the air. A twin screw type supercharger contains a male rotors which rotates clockwise and a female rotors which rotates counterclockwise. The air from the back of the supercharger will be compressed internally between the rotors and delivered to the front, and then induced to the engine. A centrifugal type supercharger compresses air by a high-speed impeller. Cool air will be drawn very quickly into the compressor and leave with a lower speed but higher density, which allows the fuel to burn more completely. To summarize how a supercharger works, we will use this diagram of a Roots type charger starting from marker 1 being the air filter. To begin, the air enters through the air intake pipe after traveling through the air filter. It's then sent through the rotor and lobes where the air induced faster into the intake manifold. The intake manifold then sends the air into the combustion chamber, where combustion occurs. The way the rotors and lobes are powered is by a belt attached directly to the engine output shaft. This allows the supercharger to begin working immediately. Roots type superchargers can provide drastic power increase at lower RPMs of the motor. Also, they are extremely reliable, they require little maintenance, and they complement the vehicle's look by hanging out of the hood. However, the Roots type supercharger provides less power during high RPMs. It also creates lots of heat. Sometimes they can cause violent throttle response. They are also lengthy in time to install. Twin screw superchargers are more efficient. They have an axial flow design that compresses the air to create positive pressure without creating lots of heat. They provide great power at lower RPMs, and they are reliable. But they are more expensive as the twin screw rotors require more precision in the manufacturing process and provides less power during higher RPMs. They also make lots of noise as when the compressed air exits the discharge outlet. It creates a whistle that needs to be subdued by a noise suppression technique. The centrifugal supercharger is the most efficient type of supercharger. They create less heat during their process and have great reliability. The impeller sizes and the speeds that impellers spin at can be changed to create lots of flexibility for power adjustments. Also, they require less installation time. However, the centrifugal superchargers may not provide as much power at lower RPMs as roost or twin screw type superchargers.
Hi, my name is Corey, and at this point, we can compare the differences between a turbocharger and a supercharger and discuss when one is more applicable than the other. In terms of fuel economy and efficiency, turbochargers are the way to go. Turbochargers are powered by the exhaust gas from an internal combustion engine, whereas a supercharger is driven by the crankshaft of an engine. On top of the efficient use of power losses, turbochargers have the ability for smaller engine displacements to produce more power relative to their size. In other words, turbochargers are ideal for your everyday commuter vehicle that wants to get from point A to B while using up less gas and producing less emissions. On the other end of the spectrum, superchargers are ideal for vehicles with enough horsepower to support them. The power delivery for a supercharger is immediate in comparison to a turbocharger that lags before providing a boost to the engine. This is due to the direct attachment of the supercharger to the crankshaft. In addition to the immediate power delivery, superchargers perform better than turbochargers at lower engine RPMs. In summary, turbochargers are ideal for vehicles that focus more on fuel economy, and superchargers are ideal for vehicles that focus more on performance and have a bigger engine displacement.